The World Is Not Enough is not only the film that brought James Bond face to face with one of his most dangerous enemies, but also the movie that quietly broke many of the familiar rules of the 007 franchise. Behind the explosions, the chase scenes, and the heart-pounding missions are countless behind-the-scenes stories that few people have ever known. Today, we will uncover 20 weird facts, carefully hidden throughout the film, that many viewers accidentally missed. From real accidents on set, casting decisions that change the entire story, to details that connect with the history of James Bond across many decades. Watch until the very end, because the final secret may make you want to watch this film again from a completely different perspective. Number 20. The boat chase almost was not the opening scene. The strange part is that the breathtaking chase on the River Thames was never meant to be the opening scene. In the original plan, The World Is Not Enough would begin with James Bond escaping from the office of a Swiss banker. He smashes through a high window, leaps outside, and uses a window blind cord to slide down like a true secret agent. It sounds clever, intense, and exactly what you would expect from 007. But when the scene was shown in test screenings, it failed to deliver the explosive impact the filmmakers were hoping for. Audiences were hardly amazed. To them, a James Bond opening needed something bigger, more dangerous, and something that would wake up the entire theater instantly. So the filmmakers decided to reshuffle the deck. The massive boat chase on the River Thames was moved to the beginning of the film, trimmed down, and turned into the opening punch. As a result, a sequence that could have appeared in the middle of the movie became one of the most memorable openings of the Pierce Brosnan era. Sometimes, the best scene only needs to be placed in the right position. Number 19. MI6 really tried to stop the film. It is not every day that a film crew is allowed to stage a bombing right in front of the real headquarters of the British intelligence service. When MI6 learned that the filmmakers wanted to stage an explosion just outside their actual building on the River Thames, they immediately objected, arguing that it posed a clear security risk. That reaction was completely understandable. However, the film received support from the highest levels of the British government. British Foreign Secretary Robin Cook stepped in and overruled the decision. According to many sources, he even joked that after everything James Bond had done for Britain, this was the least Britain could do in return for 007. The interesting part is that when the finished film was later shown to actual MI6 staff, they were reportedly applauding and cheering as they watched their own headquarters explode on screen. Only in the world of James Bond could a government agency enjoy watching its own headquarters destroyed in fiction. That really is a very unique sense of humor. Number 18. The longest opening in James Bond history. Most films bring up the title sequence after only 1 or 2 minutes. But The World Is Not Enough keeps the audience waiting for nearly 15 minutes.
Now celebrating the release of the 19th film in the series, The World Is Not Enough.
The film begins with a series of events that stretches from Bilbao to the explosion at MI6 headquarters to the breathtaking chase on the River Thames. The entire sequence before the main title runs for about 14 minutes before Garbage's theme song finally begins. At the time, it was the longest wait before the opening title sequence in the entire James Bond series.
Bilbao has been amazed. The reception we got here yesterday, people on the street, and doing this sequence, it's the opening sequence, it's the opening of the movie.
By the time the gun barrel sequence ends and the first notes of the theme begin, the audience has essentially watched an action-packed short film. That record stood for more than 2 decades and was broken only in 2021 by No Time to Die. That bold creative choice helped make the opening of The World Is Not Enough one of the most memorable openings in James Bond history. Number 17. 35 boats and a live broadcast on the River Thames. The numbers behind this chase are truly astonishing. To create the sequence on the River Thames in London, the filmmakers used about 35 different boats, making it one of the largest on-the-water action sequences in the James Bond series at the time. Filming lasted for nearly 6 weeks on the River Thames, after more than 2 months of quietly rehearsing the stunt sequences at a secret location in Hampshire. The logistics alone were an enormous challenge. But there is one fascinating detail that very few viewers still remember. During production, the filmmakers installed several webcams along the River Thames to broadcast the filming live on the internet. In 1999, when the idea of live streaming was still very new. This was an unusually bold move. Fans could patiently wait for each frame to load through slow dial-up modems just to watch James Bond speed past the Palace of Westminster in a high-speed boat. It is fair to say that this promotional campaign was years ahead of its time, as the World Wide Web and Agent 007 came together in a way that had never been seen before. Number 16. Pierce Brosnan had his face cut open during filming. The boat chase looked dangerous, not just because of special effects, but because most of the danger was real, and Pierce Brosnan still carries a small scar as a reminder of that day on set. In the scene where the boat launches out of the water and crashes through a riverside restaurant, Brosnan was actually on board. He was secured with 2 layers of safety harnesses and equipped with extra oxygen tanks in case the boat overturned and became trapped underwater. Fortunately, that accident never happened. However, as the boat crashed through the building, a piece of wood suddenly flew up and cut Brosnan's face. He was immediately taken to the hospital to have the wound stitched, and the small scar stayed with him for years as a reminder of his time playing James Bond. Years later, Brosnan admitted that once you become James Bond, getting injured is almost unavoidable. And in this case, the sense of danger the audience saw on screen was completely real. Number 15. The Y2K joke froze the film in time. Most James Bond films have a timeless feel, but The World Is Not Enough deliberately did the opposite. The film ends with a joke about the Y2K millennium bug, the fear that once made millions of people around the world believe that computers could all malfunction at the same time when the year 2000 arrived. It is one of the very few times a James Bond film tied itself to a specific historical event. Just one short line was enough to bring back the distinctive atmosphere of anxiety from the final days of the 1990s, when the whole world was anxiously waiting for the moment of entering the new millennium. Because of that, The World Is Not Enough is like a slice of that era preserved completely intact. It is also the last James Bond film released in the 20th century, and the last installment released before the world changed profoundly after the events of September 2001. Watching it again today, it feels like a letter sent from a peaceful era that has long since faded into the past. Number 14. The unexpected cameo by 2 wheel clamp officers. This is a small but quite interesting detail. Right at the beginning of the chase, Bond's boat speeds past and creates a huge splash, leaving 2 officers clamping the wheel of an illegally parked car completely soaked. But they were not ordinary extras. These 2 were actually the same people who had appeared on the famous BBC program The Clampers, a documentary series that followed real-life parking enforcement officers. The funniest part is that they reportedly had no idea they were about to appear in a James Bond scene. They were simply asked to come to the location and clamp the wheel of a car, without anyone telling them that just a few minutes later they would be drenched from head to toe by 007's speeding boat. The moment lasts only a few seconds, but it was a very British joke for audiences at the time. Anyone who had ever been frustrated by having their car wheel clamped could laugh at the scene. In just a few seconds, reality television unexpectedly collided with the world of Agent 007. Number 13. The title was a secret hidden for 30 years. This is a detail that fans of James Bond history will definitely enjoy. The title is not just a memorable phrase, but also an Easter egg that had been hidden for 3 decades. The World Is Not Enough is the English translation of the Latin family motto, Orbis non sufficit, of the Bond family. The interesting part is that this phrase was not created specifically for the 1999 film. In fact, it first appeared in On Her Majesty's Secret Service in 1969. In that film, James Bond, played by George Lazenby, sees his family coat of arms and, for the first time, the meaning of the family motto is explained. As a result, a detail that appeared only briefly in the 1969 film eventually became the title of a James Bond film exactly 30 years later. Small connections like this are what make the entire 007 franchise feel continuous and connected across generations. Keep watching, because the film's most fascinating secret is still ahead. Number 12. The BMW was sliced in half. James Bond's cars have always been one of the most beloved symbols of the franchise. Every time one appears, audiences look forward to spectacular chase scenes and an array of advanced gadgets. But in The World Is Not Enough, things turned out completely differently. The film introduces the striking BMW Z8 with its elegant and powerful design, making it seem as though it would become 007's new companion. However, it ended up being one of the shortest-lived cars in the entire James Bond series. Just as the car begins to show off its special equipment, it immediately meets a fate no one expected. A helicopter fitted with a giant circular saw flies in and slices the BMW into two almost perfectly equal halves. In just a few seconds, every expectation of what the car was about to do disappears in the most unforgettable way. Many viewers were genuinely stunned by that scene. It may have been the shortest relationship James Bond ever had with a car. Number 11. The villain who could not feel pain. Renard is perhaps one of the most terrifying villains the James Bond series has ever created. What makes him different is not his brutality or his threatening outbursts, but the fact that he can no longer feel almost anything. Played by Robert Carlyle, Renard has a bullet lodged in his head after surviving a failed assassination attempt by Agent 009. The bullet does not kill him immediately. Instead, it slowly moves deeper into his brain, gradually destroying the areas that control his senses. Renard loses his sense of taste, can no longer smell anything, and most importantly, cannot feel pain at all. That allows him to keep fighting and push his body beyond every limit until the bullet finally takes his life. The closer Renard gets to death, the more dangerous he becomes, while each of his senses disappears one by one. Robert Carlyle brought a very distinctive sadness to the character, making Renard more than just a villain. He is like a walking dead man. Perhaps that is what made him one of James Bond's most memorable enemies. Number 10. Sophie Marceau, the first true female mastermind villain. For decades, James Bond films almost always followed a familiar formula. Bond protects the girl, then faces the villain. But The World Is Not Enough quietly turned that entire formula upside down. Sophie Marceau appears as Electra King, the woman Bond is assigned to protect. She is presented as fragile, a former kidnapping victim, and someone who easily convinces everyone that she needs to be rescued. Electra King was never the victim. She is the one behind every conspiracy, controlling the entire plan from the shadows. That made Electra the first true female mastermind villain in the James Bond series in many decades, since Rosa Klebb appeared in 1963. At the time, Sophie Marceau was already one of the biggest stars of French cinema and was also well known to international audiences after Braveheart. For many fans, Electra King is the most outstanding character in the entire film. She is both the Bond girl and Bond's most dangerous enemy. The woman Bond wants to protect is also the one who is slowly leading him into a deadly trap. Do not forget to leave a comment about the fact that surprised you the most, and subscribe to the channel to join us for more videos. Now, let's get back to the video. Number 9. The loneliest time on set. Behind the glamour of a James Bond film, not every actor walks away with happy memories. Denise Richards, who played Dr. Christmas Jones, admitted that filming The World Is Not Enough was a rather lonely experience for her. According to Denise Richards, she received very little direction from the director throughout the filming process. Because her casting was mainly the studio's decision, the actress often felt that she was not truly welcomed on set. The difficulties did not end there. After the film was released, Denise quickly became the target of criticism. Many viewers, as well as critics, believed that she was not convincing enough to play a nuclear physicist. Those reactions made an already stressful experience even more difficult for her. It is a reminder that the smiles on a movie poster do not always reflect what was happening behind the camera. Sometimes, the saddest stories happen off-screen. Number 8. The female assassin cigar girl once auditioned for Electra. Casting stories are always full of ifs, and this is one of the most interesting cases in James Bond. Maria Grazia Cucinato, the Italian actress who played Cigar Girl, the mysterious assassin behind the balloon explosion in the opening, actually did not originally come to audition for this role. Her target was Electra King, the most important female character in The World Is Not Enough. However, Director Michael Apted believed that Maria Grazia Cucinotta's English ability was not enough to take on a role with as much dialogue and depth as Elektra. Therefore, instead of becoming the main female villain, she was given the role of Cigar Girl, a seductive female assassin with almost no dialogue but who appears in one of the film's most memorable opening sequences. It is interesting to think that if the casting decision that day had been different, The World Is Not Enough might have had a completely different appearance. Maria Grazia Cucinotta could have become Elektra King, while Sophie Marceau would have appeared in another role. Just one choice by the director was enough to change the entire film. Number 7. Christmas Jones, and the issue called The Thomas Crown Affair. Dr. Christmas Jones, the nuclear weapons expert with the playful name, almost had a completely different profession. According to many sources, Christmas Jones was originally written as a bounty hunter before the screenplay was revised during the development stage. That change was reportedly made for a rather interesting reason. At the time, Pierce Brosnan was also preparing to star in the 1999 remake of The Thomas Crown Affair, where the character opposite him was an insurance investigator. The studio did not want Brosnan's two biggest roles in the same year to feel too similar, so Christmas Jones was rewritten as a nuclear physicist. And what about her name? Many people believe it was kept only to set up the famous joke at the end of the film, "Christmas comes only once a year." It is interesting that an entire character was created, at least in part, to lead to that punchline. And that is also the kind of humor that James Bond films have always loved to end with. Number 6. A Farewell to Desmond Llewellyn. This is a moment that still moves many James Bond fans to this day. The World Is Not Enough marked the final appearance of Desmond Llewellyn as Q. At the time, he was already in his 80s. Over about 36 years with the series, Desmond became the creator of Bond's legendary gadgets and also the actor who appeared in more James Bond films than anyone else. The film subtly paid tribute to him. Although Q always seemed unhappy with Bond's reckless behavior, everyone could see that the bond between the two had grown stronger over the years. The film also introduced John Cleese as R, a successor who had been prepared in advance. In his final scene, Q quietly descends into the floor of the laboratory and disappears from the screen. Only about 1 month after the film was released, Desmond Llewellyn died in a car accident in England. What was intended as a farewell to the character ultimately became a deeply emotional farewell to one of the greatest legends of the James Bond series. Number 5. A documentary filmmaker took the wheel of James Bond. If you had to choose a director for a James Bond film, would you think of someone best known for documentaries? That is exactly what the producers did when they hired Michael Apted, a director better known for films with deep character studies than for explosions or action sequences. He directed the biographical film Coal Miner's Daughter about singer Loretta Lynn, and he was also the director of the famous Up documentary series that continued for many decades. It was a rather unexpected choice for a franchise known for action scenes and advanced gadgets. But that was also why Apted was expected to bring more emotion, explore the characters' inner lives, and give the female characters more prominent roles. You can see his influence in the film's quieter moments, where loneliness, betrayal, and pain are given as much weight as the action scenes. A documentary filmmaker directing a James Bond film may sound unusual, but perhaps that was the film's secret weapon. Number 4. The directors who said no first. However, Michael Apted was not the first choice at all. In fact, he was quite far down the producers' list. Roger Spottiswoode, the director of Tomorrow Never Dies, was the first to be offered the job, but he declined to return after the demanding production of the previous film. The offer was then made to Martin Campbell, who had just brought James Bond back to the top with GoldenEye. Many people believed he would continue working with Pierce Brosnan, but Martin Campbell also politely declined. After both of their top choices turned down the offer, the producers had no choice but to expand their list of candidates and eventually turned to Michael Apted, the documentary filmmaker whom very few people expected to direct a James Bond film. That is also one of the fascinating things about Hollywood blockbusters. Sometimes, the film we know today is not the result of the first choice, but of the rejections that came before it. Sometimes, The person who seems the least suitable is the one who leaves a unique mark on the entire film. Number 3. Sean Connery made a surprise visit to the set. Imagine you are filming a major action scene as James Bond. Then you suddenly realize that the very first James Bond is quietly standing there watching you. According to Pierce Brosnan, Sean Connery visited the set while The World Is Not Enough was in production and spent some time watching him film an action scene. And Connery was true to his familiar style. After watching Brosnan finish the scene, he smiled and jokingly asked whether the studio was paying him enough money. It was a very special moment. One legendary James Bond shared a playful joke with the man who succeeded him, but it was also the understanding of someone who had already walked that same path. For Brosnan, who had admired Sean Connery since he was young, the unexpected appearance of his idol on the set must have been both a joy and a kind of pressure that is difficult to describe. Sometimes, the shadow of a legendary James Bond is not just a memory. It really does appear on the set. Number 2. The film that Skyfall quietly borrowed ideas from. If The World Is Not Enough feels familiar to many James Bond fans today, that is probably not a coincidence. Looking more closely, you can see that this film almost laid the foundation for Skyfall, which was released in 2012. Both films feature a villain with a head wound who lives with a desire to die. Both harbor a deep hatred for M. In both films, MI6 headquarters becomes the target of an attack, while Bond is injured, loses his edge, and must face challenges that take place in both London and Istanbul. Although they were released 13 years apart, the two films share many similarities. The World Is Not Enough experimented with these ideas much earlier. By the time Skyfall was made, those ideas had been fully developed and became the foundation of one of the most highly praised James Bond films. So, before Skyfall received all the praise, The World Is Not Enough had quietly paved the way many years earlier. Sometimes, it is the film that is not fully appreciated that plants the seeds for the success of a future masterpiece. Number 1. M finally stepped out of the shadows. For most of the history of the James Bond series, M was always the person who sat behind a desk, assigned the mission, and waited for Bond to carry out the dangerous work. But The World Is Not Enough changed that in a major way. For the first time, Judi Dench's M became a central part of the story itself, rather than simply the person who set Bond's mission in motion. She has a personal connection to the murdered billionaire, and one decision made by M unintentionally leads to the chain of tragedies that follows. Then something that had never happened before in the series takes place. M is kidnapped and drawn directly into the center of the conflict, instead of simply watching everything from behind the scenes. This is the first time M leaves her familiar desk to face danger herself. This bold step laid the foundation for the development of Judi Dench's character in the later James Bond films. The person who assigns the mission no longer just sends Bond into the fire. She also has to step into the fire herself. More than 25 years after its release, The World Is Not Enough remains a very special chapter in the history of James Bond. Behind the breathtaking action scenes are countless behind-the-scenes stories, bold decisions, and secrets that even many longtime fans have never known. Out of these 20 facts, which one surprised you the most? Share your answer in the comments below. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to continue exploring fascinating secrets, behind-the-scenes stories, and little-known facts about classic Hollywood films. Thank you for watching until the very last second. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.